Hey, it's Robert Clickybeard, the host of the Commercial Landscaper podcast. These podcasts challenge you to grow as a leader, to stretch yourself beyond your comfort zone, and to 10x your company. I really encourage you to enjoy the show, share it with teammates, fellow business owners, and subscribe. That helps us grow our community. Hi, this is Robert Clickybeard with the Commercial Landscaper podcast. Really excited today to be joined by Eli Zevin. Eli, and welcome to the call.
Thank you, Robert. Excited to be here. Excited to chat.
Yeah, I know we saw each other last week at Leaders Forum out in Santa Barbara, so it was good to see you there, and we were both doing a little bit of networking.
Yeah, excited to welcome you to sunny Southern California, where I reside. It was quite nice, and I know a lot of folks that were there were coming from the snow and ice, so it was fun to have people experience the SoCal weather.
Yeah, no, it was a nice change. I came from that snow and ice the past 2 weeks, so it's just nice to spend time in 80 plus degrees, so can't go wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that, for sure.
So for our audience, Eli, maybe just talk a little bit about your background, just so people know who you are.
Yeah. So my name's Eli Zevin. I am the general manager of Aspire and have been at the parent company of Aspire, ServiceTitan, which is a software for some of the other trades, for just about 10 years. I hit my 10-year anniversary next week, which is very exciting. I started on the Aspire side in June, so it's been about 8 months working with landscapers, and it has been an incredible ride, incredible journey so far over these 8 months, getting to know the industry and the community and it's all the different things in the industry. So it's been really fun, and happy to dive deeper in any of those areas.
Cool, awesome. The when you were working at ServiceTitan, were you working in any specific trades? Because I know ServiceTitan deal with some multiple different trades. Were you specialize in a different area, or is it just more with the software piece?
Yeah, so I started at ServiceTitan in 2016, right, 10 years ago, and I was implementing the software for the smallest businesses that signed up. And ServiceTitan's strategy over the years has really been to go one trade at a time. Like that's really what they've did from the beginning. When ServiceTitan was first launched, well before I started, but when it was first launched, they focused just on plumbing and just on residential plumbing. And it was just residential plumbing where they were doing maintenance. Like it was like very tailored and specific. And so when I started, we had expanded already and recently into HVAC and a little bit into electrical, but it was just those three trades. As I continued at ServiceTitan, always within the implementation department, we expanded in a bunch of other trades: water treatment, garage door, exteriors and roofing and siding, eventually into commercial and construction. So I kind of saw us take on each of those as we went. But my viewpoint, my lens was always from an implementation standpoint. And over the last couple of years, ran the implementation team for the residential businesses that were signing up.
Okay, cool. Awesome. One of the hot topics that was discussed last week at Leaders Forum was, data, AI. You've probably seen yourself in the last 10 years how just that explosion of the availability of data, that AI piece, and now you're sort of in the front line with Aspire, helping with that. Talk me through some of the conversations you either hear out there, or maybe some of the questions that you're asked related to those two topics.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a hot topic, as I'm sure it is for everybody listening as well. And Robert, I even remember at the Wilson 360 event over the summer, I believe it was, in Denver, where you had a speaker come from a local university and talk about it. And I actually thought that was a particularly strong session on the topic, because he really walked through breaking it down in terms of how you could use it in a crawl, walk, run type of approach. And that's how we think about it at Aspire as well. Like we have a vision for where all this is going to get to. But I think what I've seen is businesses who are trying to jump to that vision on day one are stumbling a little bit. And I think a lot of that has to do with their data, right? To kind of circle back. If you point an AI at data that is inaccurate, it's going to give you inaccurate insights. It's going to give you inaccurate recommendations. And so we're really trying to focus in with our customers, and a lot of the conversations I'm having around taking those right early steps to be ready for where things are going. Now, that doesn't mean that's all you should do and don't use any tools until your data is perfect, right? This is one of those things it's like fashion, right? It's always getting worked on. It's always improving and changing. It's never finished,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And I think of customer data in the same way, but you also want to make sure it kind of gets to a critical mass kind of reliability, if you will, to make sure that it's giving you the right insights. So this has been a huge part of the conversation. I think it starts with the data. As I mentioned, this crawl, walk, run approach. Right now at Aspire, we're really looking at what are some of those front end features you could utilize that incorporate AI. So the big one that I'm most excited for right now is churn prediction. Uses AI to look at all the characteristics of the contracts and customers you work with to predict which are the most healthy and least healthy, to really give you that ability to proactively reach out and save some of those and maintain a lot of that revenue. So using it that way is our focus right now. And then as we continue forward, certainly continuing to adopt more and more of the cutting edge technology that's coming out.
Right. So when you talk about, things like, take that example, the churn piece,
Yeah.
are you looking at proposals written, that communication frequency with your clients and using algorithms just to help,
Yeah.
come up with some predictability?
Yeah, there are a number of characteristics. So some of those are included. It includes like the likelihood or the kind of regularity with which that they purchased enhancements or upsells from you compared to the past. It includes a lot of the communication that they're having with you. Are they responding to your team and regularly interacting? Does it notice any changes in some of those interactions compared to previous? One of the cool things, the way that this uses AI actually the most is that we're able, because Aspire has so much data in it across all the businesses that are on Aspire, we're able to pick out what the common themes are that ultimately lead to churn. So we can see, hey, the contracts that have canceled on Aspire, they often have these shared characteristics in the 6 months or 12 months leading up to it, and then use those. And part of how it's AI as well is it uses the big machine learning engine, right, which is always improving itself. It will continue to learn from the most recent data and information as it goes to always keep it most up to date with the characteristics that we see lead to churn ultimately. So building in this engine to determine that kind of like health score and likelihood to churn will be a big win for our customers, and I think big win for the industry broadly, and our hope is really allow you to retain those customers so that when you get new ones, you're not replacing revenue that left, right? You're just tacking on. And that's, I
Right.
think, really how the growth takes place.
Cool. No, I like it. I like it because people talk about growing, and a lot of the time it's either through acquisition or organic growth. But a big piece of that is the retention of clients that a lot of
Yep.
people don't necessarily remember. Um, in terms of when you're looking at that type of predictability about the churn, is that something that automatically raises red flags within the software? Is that something you're having to ask? Because sometimes when I even just look at my kids, they want to use AI, but they don't necessarily know what to ask.
Yeah.
They don't know the right questions.
Yeah. It's a great point. And so, this is kind of gets back to the crawl, walk, run a little bit. Like, I think initially a like will be something where you see it in the software and kind of have to seek it out. But this idea of proactively giving you the insights that you need and in the moment you need them is also how we're thinking about the future of Aspire. So as an example, one of the things we're going to be building this year is within the estimating workflow, where you will be able to see the system will really compare previous similar estimates and how you performed in a BVA standpoint to make recommendations for the estimate you're putting together now. Like, hey, last time you did this, or an average of the last couple of times, you underbid your labor by 20%. I can see that in the actuals that you ended up having on those contracts.
Right.
And so it will recommend things. So this concept of that happening in the estimate workflow, in the moment you need it. So our intention with the churn prediction as well, and many other things in the software, is to do it in that way, to implement it in that way where it's giving you the information in the moment you need it. As a quick side note, Robert, I will tell you, it's been one of the interesting, my own AI journey in terms of my personal usage. I think has gone down the same path as your kids that you referenced. Like initially, I was struggling to think of what should I ask, how should I utilize it. One of the big unlocks I had recently is this concept called reverse prompting, which is essentially asking the AI to look at everything you're doing or asking it or whatever systems of yours it's plugged into, whether it's your email or your Slack or Teams or whatever, and asking it, hey, evaluate what you can see of me and give me ideas for opportunities that I could use you more effectively. And I've gotten some really, really big results from that. Yeah, that have been really interesting. It's like ask the AI how you can use AI better. It's kind of this meta concept, but it's been really effective for me. So I highly recommend checking that out for
Okay.
everybody that's listening. Like ask the AI to give you recommendations of how you can use it more effectively. That really leveled up my usage personally.
No, I love that. I think I've actually tried that before and I was very impressed. Um, I try and educate myself on AI and where's everything going. And one of my podcasts I listen to a lot is All In
Yep.
podcast,
Yep.
and I was just talking about uh, AI is developing so quickly that it's even surprising a lot of the people that are already experts in the area.
Yep.
And I was just thinking back to what you were saying earlier, is that obviously that run, walk, run piece, but that must be also be challenging for you, because if AI is going so quickly as well, as how do you match that piece?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like as soon as you feel like you're at the walk stage of crawl, walk, run, all of a sudden you're back at crawl because the technology has jumped so
Yeah,
quickly, right? Yeah. I think for me, I really go back to just like the principles of how I think about this, which is have a clear plan and be adaptable. Like, and that's kind of how I think about it in a lot of areas with building technology. But I think particularly if you lean on those principles, it's going to help you when things are moving this quickly. And I'll tell you, even with Aspire, like we have had to shift our plans a couple of times in terms of how we were going to do this because things are moving so fast. And that could
right,
continue to happen. Like right now, we're looking at agentic workflows, right? What agents could we put in the software that can accomplish things for you, whether it be sending out AR emails or responding to issues that are coming up that you're logging in your, in Aspire. Like there's a ton of opportunity for that. So it is an interesting moment where we are adapting very quickly and constantly evolving what we feel like the best path is to deliver for our clients. And I think that's okay to me as long as we can stick with the principles that we have, right? Of thinking about the outcomes we're delivering, thinking about the experience people have of using Aspire and just technology in general, and being adaptable as things change. And so
right.
it's tough to do. It's a tough moment for that, candidly,
Oh
but
yeah, for sure.
it's part of the fun also.
Are you having to change the way, whether it be at the Aspire level or ServiceTitan level, of the type of people you're now hiring to sort
In
of
some ways,
match?
yeah. So, yeah, we're looking for people. We actually recently have hired some people on the Aspire side with more of a data science background that can really dig into some of the machine learning side and kind of build some of these things. And one of the benefits we have at Aspire is the fact that we are plugged in with ServiceTitan, who has an entire data science team and a whole large group of folks who are building within AI. And so we get to plug in both to level up our existing team members to learn in those areas from people who have that expertise, and then pull in some of those engineers to help us on the Aspire side as well. And it's been a big part of our strategy, since being acquired by ServiceTitan, is building things between the softwares that are sort of what we call like software agnostic, right? So we can build certain things that both softwares can plug into. Right now, we're working on routing as an example. Advanced routing does some really cool things. It's being built in a way that isn't directly for one software or the other. It's being built in a way that can then get plugged into the front end of both. And we have a third software called Field Routes as well for the pest side. And so that strategy, I think, actually allows us to utilize a lot of the ServiceTitan resources and budget. ServiceTitan overall as a company, including Aspire, spends multiple hundreds of millions of dollars a year on R&D. And so it's a humongous team and a humongous budget. Given the moment, it is needed, right? We need to invest in that area significantly to continue to become the platform of the future. And so building in this way where we can plug into things that are shared between all of the software ServiceTitan has already been hugely beneficial and certainly will continue to be as we go forward.
Okay, cool, cool. Yeah, I was actually going to touch on that or expand on that. Was you touched on it earlier, where obviously you've got not only the data related to Aspire, but whether it's other companies you own, whether it's other strategic partners you have, a lot of them have their own data as well. So is there that, maybe it's already happening, is there that ability to be able to somehow gather all that data and be able to utilize that through, whether it's best for routing, just so many operational efficiencies?
Yeah, it's an interesting moment, I think, for a lot of softwares in this way. And the reason I kind of zoom out to say that is I think source of truth of your data, right? And it being in multiple places, and what that means as we get further into this AI world is interesting, right? And it's kind of, I think, still being determined what that's going to mean. There are certainly people who are talking about there being sort of like an AI layer on top of all the different platforms you use versus each one has its own AI, just those differences, right? And so I think for us strategically, yeah, we certainly have customers who are extracting their data from Aspire and, using Power BI or other tools to do reporting and some of the other workflows from there. And then we have other customers who are doing everything in Aspire, like their entire day to day for all their teams. So I think it really can work both ways. It depends on the specific need of the customer. But I continue to believe that exposing a lot of our API endpoints and giving customers the ability to get their data from Aspire to use it in the way that they want will give them the best opportunity to pair that with data from other places and take those actions in the workflows that they want to take.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, Willard and I have actually had a bunch of conversations about that.
Oh, cool, yeah. Well, as soon as you said source of truth there, I thought, oh, that's Willard's quote. he loves using that.
Yep.
Let's take a minute to thank our sponsors. Urcher is a life brand born from grit, founded by Zach Strausser. The mission is clear: to raise $1 million for the trades by supporting vocational training across North America. Urcher makes tough, smart gear built for landscaping and snow professionals who work hard outside every day in all conditions. Their apparel puts safety first, helps crews look sharp, and honors the pride in their craft. Every purchase has purpose, fueling training programs and building a resilient workforce. Urcher isn't just workwear, it's a culture of respect, resilience, and results. When you contact Urcher, mention Wilson 360 and Zach and his team will take well care of you.
You touched on this earlier where a lot of this is dependent, whatever system you're using, on that source of truth or that correct data and maybe how the system was set up in the first place.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure there's some examples in whatever software you use where maybe the things were not set up correctly. I've even heard of cases where, somebody's been on, Aspire for, 3 or 4 years and they're still struggling to get their crews to enter stuff correctly. How do you, I suppose, identify where there are some challenges? Because obviously a lot of that maybe needs to be fixed first before you then start using some other, AI tools or bots or something.
Yeah. So I think, first of all, I am certainly aware that there are, customers of ours that struggle in the software and have been on for a while. And I think there's a couple of different categories. Sometimes you've been on for a shorter period of time and are still adopting and still getting used to the workflows. But other times, I think, just to call a spade, like I think we had some bad experiences that took place during implementation in different phases of the Aspire journey. And that's normal for a scaling software company. But nonetheless, in my opinion, it is our responsibility to help clean that up. So if anybody's listening and that resonates with you, you're an Aspire customer and you feel like you've been on the system for a while, you're not getting the outcomes, please reach out to me directly. My email is ezevin@youraspire.com. First letter, my first name, my last name. Please send me an email. We want to help you. We want to help you out. With that said, Robert, I would tell you that ultimately, you need to look at whether you are getting the right level of value from the software. There's something I've heard recently, actually, from a partner of ours that you can't lose an hour of labor in Aspire. It's not going to go missing. Like the system will keep track of it, right? And the value of that is significant. And so those sorts of things where if your workflows are correct and you're using the software as intended, you should be getting value from that kind of thing and many other things that the software provides. So if you're not seeing those outcomes, I would start with solving for that before I try to tack on a lot more technology onto my stack. That's just going to complicate things more. So I think it's about kind of being able to assess whether you're getting those outcomes. And if you're on Aspire, your CSM can help you determine that. We have some tools we can use, something called a health scorecard that will show you your adoption in Aspire. You can look at and see whether your usage and your adoption is giving you the outcomes that you need. So we'd definitely start there on the Aspire side before complicating things. But as I mentioned earlier, I don't think this is a fully black and white thing. It's not like, oh, hit this number and now you're ready to use other technology.
Right.
So I think there is a bit of gut feel to it, and we're happy to make recommendations, as well on what we see. But I think there is some gut feel of readiness of your team, their ability to handle change and new technology, new workflows, and all that. That sort of business specific and really case by case.
Yeah, no, I like that. I love your idea of that health score. Just talking about the adoption of the system, the usage of the system. I think that'd be really helpful. How do you? Is there any other when you talk about providing value? Is there anything else that you can think of where? Well, I know, for example, my gross margin has gone from this to this because we've now increased our usage of Aspire by 10 or 20%. Is there any other sort of value drivers there?
Yeah. So we do have some kind of analysis that does show that, broadly speaking, in terms of when you use Aspire, you're much more likely to increase your margins and to ultimately have margins, operating kind of profit margins above 10%. It's not like everyone on Aspire has that or anything, but you're significantly more likely when you adopt the system to get some of those results. So that's pretty exciting. I think for me, like ticket workflow management, ticket management, issue management is key. We're also building and completely redoing our site audits functionality, which if you're running a maintenance business, I think is an incredibly key component of quality control of the work that your teams are doing, and seeing that and having a feedback loop where you can give your crews that feedback. And then also for your account managers to spot opportunities for enhancements. If they go on site and they can, really use our kind of refresh site audits that we're building, which is going to be a photo first experience where they take photos, takes notes, and then builds proposals out. That is really going to increase your ability to upsell enhancements, which obviously are margin positive for a maintenance focused business. So really would take a look at that workflow in particular. And a lot of the strongest businesses I've seen use Aspire are leaning heavily on that area.
Yeah, no, I love that. That was something that we were always looking at. How can we reduce that friction on getting the information back from a field, whether it be issues in the field, whether it be enhancement opportunities into the customer's hands as quickly as possible. And if we could reduce that friction, then usually that ended up with some really high enhancement sales.
And I think what you just said there, Robert, is a really big key as well, which is speed, right? Like how quickly can you do it, right? So this is something we're really focused on as well, is if we can speed up the process and make it easier and faster using AI or other automation techniques, you can do more per day. And ultimately your teams can spend more time in the field with clients. Like, I think to me, that's what it's all about. Like technology needs to be about reducing the amount of administrative time. And I think Aspire has struggled with that historically and in certain areas of the software. And it's a big focus of ours is to reduce the amount of admin time. Your teams who want to be in the field, they want to be talking to clients, they want to be out there, and that's what produces the best results. We need to give them the ability to spend more time doing just that. So huge focus for us as well. And I think, for a lot of, I know the industry is, how can we get our teams doing what they do best and what delivers the best results for our businesses more often. So that'll certainly be something to stay tuned on as well.
No, but I love that. And how, I know we talked offline about, attending events and speaking to people, but how do people sort of give you that type of feedback about, hey, here's some improvements you could think about, or here's an idea? I mean, obviously you can't deal with, thousands of different ideas. You need some type of a filter there, but do you feel as though you have a good feedback loop where, you're able to prioritize some of those needs?
Yeah, I think ours is okay. And, as we've talked about, like I've been traveling a lot, going to conferences, meeting with clients on site and all this kind of thing. And, not everyone gives the feedback as calmly as you just described there, which is expected and okay. I think that's part of it. But I think it comes that way because people are very passionate about it. And I love that. Like, I think people care and want us to, want to partner with us to improve. I'm all in. And so comes in a lot of forums. We certainly have an ideas portal where people can vote on different ideas, and we look at that heavily. And then just from having conversations, certainly get a lot of ideas. I will tell you, I think in the 8 months I've been in this role with Aspire, the hardest thing has been taking all of that data, right? It's data at the end of the day, all those inputs, and trying to figure out how to prioritize. Like, that has been the hardest thing because there are a ton of good ideas out there. And a lot of those best ideas, I think, come from our clients who are using the software every day. And certainly our team's got some pretty strong ideas as well. But figuring out what to build when there's so many different permutations of what you could do. Each idea takes a different amount of time to develop you have a finite number of resources to utilize, and you have to figure out what is worth it to build and when, right? And that process has been fascinating, fun, and hard. And I think it's something that we're continuing to improve on ultimately. But the best thing for that process, in my opinion, the thing that helps more than anything else is just getting more information. Like, I need to hear directly from clients about what's great in Aspire, what's working, and certainly what's not, because that really helps me understand what the impact is of each decision or opportunity or kind of idea that we could execute, right? And it ultimately is a game where you're trying to figure out what's the highest impact thing we could do and when, right? That's ultimately what you're looking for. And so the more I hear from clients about their ideas of what that is, the more information I have to make that kind of a decision with our team, our product management team. So it's been fun. It's definitely been a challenge. And I think just really appreciate all the clients who reach out about it or who I discuss at conferences or approach me at conferences to talk about it. It's incredibly helpful.
No, that's awesome. And I know you're at our event, and I always know that anybody coming in, you said you've been here for 8 months now, roughly. So I mean, from what I've seen and observed, I mean, the fact that you're always asking questions, you're curious, you're trying to just come in with that humble attitude where, hey, I'm learning here.
Yeah.
I want to hear from you. What the changes are made? How are we messing up? What things are we doing great at? I've seen that approach from you, so kudos to you.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And honestly, just it's been an incredible time getting to know all the people in the industry. And one of the things I remarked at the event at Leaders Forum last week is just about how close and tight knit the community is, and how the community supports each other. It was really incredible to see in my first couple of months, and just continuing to get more and more in the depths of the industry and the community. It's been really amazing to see. So big shout out. That does not exist everywhere. I think there's a lot of people in the industry that maybe have mostly worked in landscaping. That is not the case everywhere. And it is really incredible that it is in the landscaping industry.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why I do the podcast. That's why I love this industry, is because even though it's a huge industry, I mean, in some ways it's a really small industry that a lot of people know each other.
Yep.
We know who the players are, the influencers, but we're all willing to listen and help each other.
Yes.
Unless you're in a competing, local market or something, maybe a different story then. But no, that's part of the reason why I love this industry. So, as we start to wrap up here, how do you see the next 1, 2, 3 years out there? We had the economic people out there, Leaders Forum, just talking about they're predicting some pretty significant growth for the next few years. But how does you see Aspire or ServiceTitan sort of fit into that growth?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, we definitely got that presentation at the Leaders Forum around the growth continuing the next couple of years, and then we'll see what happens beyond that in the 2030s. Right. But I think generally speaking, what we see is that the best operators are on Aspire, and the results that they get reflect that. You look at the top 100, 150 companies in the country, the ones growing the fastest are very often on Aspire. And so I think that that's no coincidence, and a lot of that is has to do with what we talked about in terms of the functionality that the software delivers. When I think about the next couple of years, I think it's really going to be about increasing the impact that the software is making and doing it in a way that puts people in the place they're going to be most effective in their role, and not behind a desk when they shouldn't be. Like, that's the name of the game at this point, in my opinion. Automate manual things that keep your team from doing what they do best and what is most valuable to your business. And so if we can focus on that, which is a huge part of our focus in all of these areas, right, in terms of the site audits and facilitating that functionality and doing it quickly so they can get a lot of them out per day and in high quality. In terms of the estimating, right, so you can win more deals because you were able to to bid something with the correct amount of labor based on your actuals. So you win the right deals that are going to be beneficial to your business. And then in terms of, a lot of the other functionality that we're building, churn prediction as well, to continue to retain those customers. Like, all these things I think go back to growing your business over time. And a big component of that we're focusing on is putting your people in the right place that they're going to be most impactful. So I think thinking about that on the automation side and how AI plays into it will be the differentiator for the businesses to succeed in this next couple of years versus those who maybe stay a little bit more stagnant and don't grow as quickly.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I mean, you said something key there, which is, putting people out where they enjoy, the most. And that's out in the field, looking at the landscaping, talking to their clients, having those great conversations rather than being stuck behind a desk.
That's right.
If we're trying to attract people into the industry, there needs to be a lot more tech involved, a lot more automation involved. But just being out there, outdoors, talking to clients, having those conversations, I think that's really key.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, like, it's infectious too. The very first time I really met with John Gohl in person, I know a lot of folks know John on our team, but the first time I met with him, we were in a parking lot and he was talking to me about the landscaping in the parking lot. We were in St. Louis. And just the passion he had, like, I got passionate about it. And ever since then, everywhere I go, I'm looking at the landscaping and looking at the edging and the quality and I'm like, oh, that must have been an enhancement that they did, or look, they put in color recently, or whatever it is. And, my wife makes fun of me quite a bit because she doesn't come from that world, and it's been a change that she's noticed, but I love it. And so I think you're 100% right. Like, people, in terms of attracting people into the right people into the industry and retaining our employees as well, right, in their roles. A lot of it is about making their day-to-day a higher percentage of the time that they spend every day doing the work that got them here in the first place, and a lower percentage of the time doing everything else that didn't. So we think about that for our own teams on the Aspire side, and then certainly for our clients and how we build out the software. So it's a huge key.
No, that's awesome. Awesome. Yeah. And my wife gives me a hard time as well. Anytime we travel and go abroad, I'm always looking at the landscaping. Yeah. So, well, Eli, I know you're a busy person. Thank you for your time today. If people do want to, I know you mentioned your cell phone, your email earlier, but is that the best way to contact you? Is there any other way through LinkedIn or any other?
Yeah. Honestly, whatever's easiest for you, for the listener. Like, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll respond there. Email, if you want my cell number, it's 949-439-4977. Send me a text, call, whatever's easiest. I want to hear from you if you've got something to say. And, to kind of circle back, like, the thing that keeps me in where I am and that keeps me motivated and excited is talking to clients. Like, I love talking to people. I love hearing about the good and bad about using our software. So, that's what I'd like to do every day, all day. So feel free to reach out anytime. I'm available.
Awesome. Eli, I really appreciate your time. Good to see you as always. And I'm sure we'll see you at one of the upcoming events.
Sounds good, Robert. Appreciate it.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. I hope you're walking away with some great nuggets that you can immediately apply to your business, whether you're in leadership, operations, or you just want to show up every day with that Ironman mindset. Remember, growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens with intentional moves, bold conversations, and surround yourself with the right people. If you found value today, subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with others. And again, don't forget to check out wilson-360.com. We have digital courses from account management, operational excellence, leadership development, or some of the other coaching packages we offer. Anyway, a huge shout out to our sponsors. Thank you very much. And I'll leave with this. Have a pure, dead, brilliant day.